Hello and welcome to this video, which is about scale length, guitar scale length to be precise. And it all started off with an interesting comment from somebody on one of my videos. It was my trials and tribulations of the Gibson Les Paul video, and basically the guy was saying that it wasn't the Gibson Les Paul per se that he was struggling with, it was the Fender scale length that he didn't like. Now, what he was referring to is the fact that the Fender scale length is longer than the Gibson scale length. Nearly all Gibsons are the same scale length, 24 point. I'll just check my notes here. 24.75 inches. Nearly every Gibson is that, and it's in mass production. That's the shortest scale length. You know, there are oddities that are less here and there, but mass production generally that's the shortest scale length. And when we're talking about scale length, we're talking about the distance between the nut here and the bridge. So on a Gibson it's 24.75. On a Fender, checking notes again, it is 25.5 inches. So that's 3/4 of an inch. Fair bit, to be honest. 3/4 of an inch longer on the Fender. Now this is a Suhr here, but it's got the Fender scale length, so it's more than an adequate example of what we need to look at. It's also got a maple neck, and it has a humbucker in the bridge and 2 single coils, HSS style. So let's just get her on. So, generally speaking, not every Fender is the same, but Fenders generally, they tend to go for the single coil pickups. Oh, this has got a humbucker for more rockier tones in it. But generally Fenders, they stuck with the single coil pickups because the sort of player demographic of the company when they started out making guitars from the early 50s through that decade, generally, you know, like country style music, you know, rootsy music, blues. A single coil pickup just suits this scale length far better and gives that brighter, sort of more wiry sound, which a lot of players back then, and still today even, a lot of players back then, that's what they wanted, that's what they were looking for. So Fender stuck with it. When we come to the Gibson, which we'll come to in a minute, their philosophy is they're more of a background with jazz and what have you. So it was more of the humbucker guitar really that they favoured the humbucker sound generally, and the shorter scale length seems to suit the humbucker really better. You've got to look at the radiuses of the necks as well. On Fender generally they're more curved, so the tighter radius, there's more curve in it. Gibson fretboards are generally flatter, so yeah. So the playability all round on a Gibson, because of the shorter scale length and the flatter fingerboard, it generally favours people that maybe want to be technically very fast and you know, they want a big sound with a humbucker there. And yeah, generally you can put more vibrato on, more bends. There's a lot of histrionics involved with it, you know. We'll come to that in a minute. We'll just have a little look here. I'll put the Griot Lightspeed on. You can hear how bright this guitar is. So when I do a bend, I'm to put a lot more force and effort into that than when I play the ES35 in a sec. I want to put a lot more effort in. I can actually still feel that finger end when I was bending that. But the payoff is that I think with single coils and the Fender scale, it brings out a certain quality of the player. You can hear more what the player's about with it. and there's an articulation to single coils and the Fender scale length as well. I think that, I'm not saying it's missing in Gibsons and in PRSs, that it's just a different kind of beast, you know. The Gibson's much more suited to sort of gainier, rockier playing, really. If you're playing clean, the sort of jazzier end of things, blues to a certain extent. But with the Fender, the scale length, you know, you can do your funk stuff, your country stuff, your rootsy Americana stuff. It just all comes flying out. It's horses for courses, but what the guy was saying on the comment was, yeah, it's just what he finds highs, like the vibrato and the sort of stuff like that, you know. And with the curved radius, it's not as easy to do your runs. So let's have a little look at the ES335. I will add, though, I will qualify all that with the fact that you know, if you set up a Fender scale length guitar properly, you know, get your action down a wee bit. Everything's adjusted right, intonation, the lot. You know, you can get a comfortable, buttery kind of feel to the playing on the Fender scale, but it does take work, and it's never as easy as on a Gibson. But some people just like the struggle. They like the struggle of going against the stiffer action. So we'll move on to our ES335, and we shall make said comparison. If you'll bear with me for 1 secondo. So yeah, an interesting thing really is, if you do a gig or you do recording or rehearsal or whatever, and you have the opportunity at some point to switch between a Fender scale length and a Gibson scale length, it can take a little bit of time to adjust and get used to it. I find if I'm going from like a Fender scale length to a Gibson, you know, certainly for the first song, I'm probably overbending like crazy, so I'm really less tension. I'm just overcompensating. You do settle down and get used to it quickly enough. It's something to think about. When it's the other way, going from Gibson to the Fender, maybe, you know, you're not quite as fluid as you want to be to start with, because you've got to get used to that stiffer action. But again, you do settle down, really. It makes difference, I suppose. It does affect your playability in the sense of chime as well. You know, the chime you're going to get out of the guitar, but the human mind adapts very, very quickly to these things. So okay then, so this is an ES335, as you probably know. I'll just put my switch down. Already a lot more output on this. I'm on the neck hook of the ES335. Light speed's on, so it's the same, basically the same settings and everything. Got a lot more confidence moving around quickly. Of course, the other obvious observation is the fact that the distance, because you've got short scale, the distance between the frets is less as well. So for people with maybe smaller hams, the Gibson scale length could be the thing you want to gravitate towards. With there's less distance to travel between the frets and. A lot easier on this guitar, a lot easier, you know. Yeah, you can put that vibrato on even on the sort of heavier strings when you're doing riffs, you know. It's a lot lot more work on the Fender scale when you do, you know, right on those thicker strings. So, yep, that's the difference in the scale lengths between the Fender and the Gibson. I've no preference personally between either. The horses for courses, the different beasts. If you want an easier go of it for whatever reason, small hands, or you, for no fault you've only made slightly weak hands, or you're just starting out playing and you try to develop strength in your hands and fingers, the Gibson scale length is an easier way to go. The Fender scale length, I started out on Strat copies. You get used to it, but you know, it's never as fast and as fluid as on the Gibson scale length. But you know, that doesn't stop guys like Malmsteen flying around the neck. You know, so it can be done. You just have to be willing to dial in the Fender scale length a bit more. You know, with your action and the neck bow and the intonation and all these kind of things. You just need to dial that in a little bit more on the Fender scale. I hope you enjoyed this one. Just remains for me to say, stay well, keep well, and I'll catch you later, guys. Bye.